is more and or Dom Lauert son Muntor. Fui Shael, Muditter, Dillis, Seamus. I am honoured to be speaking today on behalf of my family on the life of my beloved brother Jim. Jim was born on the 23rd of April 1966. He was the oldest of 6 in a noisy, busy and sometimes eccentric family home. Our hall was full of bicycles, football boots, coats and hurleys. We all shared a warm, loving but busy 3-bedroom house, and for most of my early childhood, Jimmy and I shared a bed. He was a big, generous and fun older brother, and we all adored him. Jim was the organiser of both our family and neighbourhood friends. If there was something going on, Jimmy would always be found in the middle with his unflagging energy and remarkable ability to include everyone. We all wanted to be with Jim. I remember on one occasion during a family camping holiday, Jimmy organised a soccer tournament and barbecue bonfire for the whole campsite. Everyone joined in, including me, his younger brother of 5 years, and to my amazement, an entire scout troop. That was Jim. Growing up, we were a close family, and when Melbourne recruited Jim as an 18-year-old, we were all devastated at the thought of Jimmy being so far away. Australia to us really was the other side of the world, and I told him before he left that I would be following. When at Melbourne, Jim in those days was only allowed to ring home once a week. This was the highlight of our week, and I can remember us all waiting to speak with Jim. My dad, Mam, Sharon, Terry-Ann, David, Dervla and myself all lined along the hall stairs by the phone, waiting our turn to talk to Jim, because we all loved and missed him so much. 4 years later, I did succeed in joining Jim at Melbourne, and we had 5 wonderful years together in Australia. Each Christmas we would travel the world on our way home. Only 2 weeks ago, Jimmy reminded me of the time we were in Kathmandu, when we shared an old passenger plane with cargo of dogs, chickens and live animals. This was fun to Jim, the adventure, the craziness and the uniqueness of the experience. Jim always loved a new experience, and he had a fantastic thirst for life. All my brothers and sisters travelled to Australia to join Jim, and there was always a constant coming and going of Styneses between Ireland and Australia. Jim was a second father figure for us in Australia, and my mum and dad never worried about any of us because they knew that Jimmy would always look after us. He was generous, loving and caring. He did this in spades with advice, accommodation, jobs, and included us in his social circle. All of us have at one time received a phone call or a talk from Jimmy when he felt we were not fulfilling our potential. He had high personal expectations of us, and we each tried to live up to them. The few highlights to my sporting life all included Jim. When I played in the final of the All-Ireland in 1995, Jim flew home to surprise me the day before the game. He was there to celebrate with the rest of the family, the biggest moment of my career. Another big moment for me was when I was able to play for Melbourne in the same team as Jimmy. This was something I had wanted to do since I was 13 when Jimmy first left for Australia. When I had the honour of representing my country in international rules, the occasion was made more special because Jim was playing against me for Australia. At the end of the game, I was injured, and Jim was more concerned about getting into the Irish dressing room to see how I was than about celebrating an Australian win. Finally, when Jim returned one Christmas, the 3 Stynes brothers got to play together for our local Gaelic football team, Ballybowden St Enda's, and this was an incredibly special moment for all 3 of us. There has never been a moment when we could not imagine Jimmy in our lives. My deepest sympathies go out to his beautiful Sam, Matisse and Tiernan. In the last few weeks of his life, Jim asked me to look after them, and this is an honour that I will take seriously. My sympathies also go out to my broken-hearted parents, Brian and Teresa, and my brother David, sisters Sharon, Terry-Ann and Dervla, nephews Jamie, Sammy and Dylan, and niece Ashlyn, his fantastic in-laws Mary, Frank, Wayne, Sienna and Lutus. Many people have been touched by Jim during his wonderful but too short life. He leaves a 6'7" gap in our lives that will always be empty. But I take some comfort that he will forever be in our hearts as we are forever in his. He was an inspiration to us all, and we could not have a better son, brother, and uncle. I tried following in his footsteps, but they were always too big. I will miss you, Steinser, my brother and my best friend. The Lord have mercy on his soul. O tugad dia trocra ar an anam.